So very good evening, and you all are watching Empowering Northeast India Youth. And in that, there is a beautiful concept that we have started from 4th April, and that is 1 month uh, online flip learning, whatever you want to name this particular training program, which is called as Learning How to Learn. And we are into the 3rd week of that. And I just want to say that we are gaining, I hope that all the students are agreeing with me that we are gaining many knowledge, wonderful things from Professor M.M. Pant sir. And we are very thankful to him for that. And in that, today we are going to cover or the talk on the topic that we have covered this week on techniques to become a better self-learner. So just showing few slides, and then we will be in conversation with Professor M.M. Pant along with all the students, participants, those who are into this program from Northeast. And just to make you know about the significance of this particular day, that is 23rd of April. This day is celebrated as World Book and Copyright Day. As I've told you that books, though technology has been more advanced and now we talk about online learning and iPads and audio books and all the things, but books have their significance, and this day also signifies to all the authors that dedicated their devoted their time to thought of the things to write in the book, and then they written down these wonderful books, and we have so many books on different topics. So hats off to all the authors, and we uh, uh, talk about World Book and Copyright Day as just make books as your best friend. As we always say that books are our best friend, so keep doing that and keep gaining more and more knowledge as much as you can. And along with that, today is World English Language Day. We say World English Language Day, as I've told, that United Nations has dedicated this particular day as English Language Day, because today is it's a sheer coincidence that today is the birth and the death anniversary. We have a few of the persons though who have their birth and death on the same date and the same day. So William Shakespeare, a renowned author, has his birthday and death anniversary, and death anniversary on 23rd April, and on his dedicated, this is today is celebrated as English Language Day, adopted by United Nations. And United Nations have 6 official languages and dedicated 6 important days throughout the year for 6 particular languages, and that is Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, and Spanish. And along one of the language, that is English language, and today is World English Language Day. And as I have told that we are into the 3rd week of this particular training program. Today we will be going to talk about attributes to become a better self-learner. Last week we have talked about attributes of successful self-learner, and today is techniques to become self-learner. So we are thankful to LMP Education Trust for organizing such a wonderful online training program, complementary to all the students on WhatsApp. And this is the glimpse of certificate. This is a sample of that certificate that all the students, those who are regular attending this particular training program, they will be getting after the completion of this particular training program. And this particular pilot project is dedicated to Northeast India, and particularly the girl students, the female students of that particular region. And believe me, this trio is wonderful, and it will lead to Atmanirbhar Bharat. If we dedicate our life, if we dedicate our vision towards relevant education, along with skills and along with startups, entrepreneurship, new concepts, basically. Shiksha Kaushal Udyamita, whatsoever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Do you believe in that? We are also thankful, as I've told, Professor Pant sir, who is the brain behind this innovation, I would say. This innovative concept, innovative training program, a flipped kind of a training program, which we are getting on WhatsApp. See, education is so simple and very interesting. The only thing is that we should have the dedication, we should have that creativity, we should have that zeal towards learning. And learning can happen anytime, anywhere, anyhow. So he is the program director also. And let's begin today's talk. Let's learn about the technique to become a better self-learner from Professor M.M. Pant. Sir, we are very grateful that you have joined us. And if we can have you on screen, sir.
Yeah, can you see me?
Yes, sir, I can see you, sir.
Can you hear me?
Sir, voice is a bit shaking.
Yeah, see, I'd like to share with you that I do. So so I'll increase the volume.
Yes, sir.
So the thing that I need to share with you is that I'm not at my usual location, which is the home, but I'm in Dehradun in a certain event where I just had a session from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. and I've taken this break to have this session with you people, and I will go back to my session from 9 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
So, or maybe we'll finish the session a few minutes earlier if possible.
Sure,
I think we will get straight away to this whole issue. So you know that we are doing a very elaborate thing, as Chitra has kind of pointed out. This is probably a completely new kind of a experience for people. I would not even call it a course, but a learning experience. And we have been going through this in reasonable detail so that by the time you are through with this, you really become pretty good at being able to learn things by yourself. And why learning things by yourself is becoming so important is that there are so many new things happening every day at a pace that you just cannot wait for a teacher to teach you each of these things. So that is why it is very important to become a self-learner. So what we did in the first 2 weeks was, of course, talking about the importance of being a self-learner, then the behavioral attributes of a self-learner. This week we talked about techniques of being a self-learner. And next week we'll be talking about the toolkit for being a self-learner. And this is the point about the whole thing, that we are going to, in this thing, we shared, whatever we shared during the week, we will build on those and try to talk about that. So if you recall, we said that a step-by-step approach to becoming a self-learner. And one of the special things we talked about was the Feynman method of learning anything. And then we talked about ultra learning. Then we talked about social learning, and then we talked about learning while you sleep. So this session is going to be an overall comprehensive session on where I will respond to your questions, comments, observations, and elaborate on them. So I think, Chitra, may I request you to get the questions and comments coming? And
yes, sir. So first of all, I would like to thank you. The material that you have sent, usually every week it is wonderful, but this week it's really worth sharing and worth reading and worth listening to the audios. So thank you so much, sir. The first question sir. The first question has come from Nabam Yamin. She's asking that in which techniques we use for self-learner.
Yeah. So basically the point is that the reason I'm talking of a range of techniques rather than suggesting just one technique is that if you recall, we had used that word meta-learning everyone is a different kind of a learner. And therefore, of this range of techniques, you try out and see the ones which work best for you, and then start using them. Obviously, the step-by-step approach, typically as said by Feynman, is a very good one because this has stood the test of time. I will share with you, even when this has not been explicitly said. So I studied in Allahabad University, which produces a lot of IASs. And many of my teachers who became IAS had actually taught for a couple of years. So they did their MSc, they were good students, they got their first class, etc. in MSc, but then they were taught for a couple of years. And then when they took the IAS exam, they were at the top of the list, top of all India list, top of the subject lists, and so on. Even otherwise, I have seen that even in the field of computer, many people who take a job as a computer teacher for a while, then get into very good companies like TCS and Infosys. So as Richard Feynman says, the difference is that when you are studying for an exam, you are studying somehow to be able to write the answers to the exam. But when you are studying to teach, you are kind of preparing or thinking over all kinds of possibilities that may arise because you don't know what question a student is going to ask. And as you become an experienced teacher, you find that you have covered a whole range of things which come in the way of a student's learning. That's why you find that an experienced teacher is so much better than may know the content, but is not so good at understanding what are the barriers to learning. The kind of questions we are asking you to ask have to be anticipated by a teacher, because in most lectures, there won't be time to ask those questions. You respond to what is being said. So I would suggest the step-by-step model where you begin with this thing, and then as you try to explain it, something that you don't understand, you try to go back, find out about it, and so on and so forth.
Right, sir. Thank you. Next question I would like to ask, sir. Please tell us that is there any difference between education and knowledge, or education, or knowledge or learning?
See, the basically knowledge is something which exists. So knowledge already exists with others. Learning or education is when then you have acquired that knowledge. So the knowledge is buried in the books. Let's say the Bhagavad Gita has a lot of knowledge, but you have learned the Bhagavad Gita when you have been able to get that knowledge transferred to you and assimilated and adapted for your learning needs. So this is the basic difference, that education is where knowledge which is external to you becomes internal to you. So you know this.
So, sir, in that case, I would like to ask that, see, you have taken an example of Bhagavad Gita. So, when just reading Bhagavad Gita doesn't give us the learning, we need a guru for that. So,
yeah,
where is the concept of self-learning then?
Yeah. So in self-learning, you are the guru. So the point is, teaching and learning are two roles. Now, you must have seen many theater things where the same person performs both roles. He gives the dialogues of two people. It's like very often you have this. In fact, there is a very famous film of Sanjeev Kumar where he plays 9 roles in the same thing. So the idea is you first act as a teacher and convey something. Then you act as a learner and say, but I didn't understand this. This thing kind of arises out of this. Then you again try to come as a teacher and try to explain that. So you can become your own teacher. And this is what real learning is all about. And in fact, if you look at some of these spiritual approaches like Buddha and so on, they said this is a seeker. A seeker is a self-directed learner who wants to learn and who finds the answers on questioning his learning again. So therefore, it is completely possible to do it. And as we said, the technique is a step-by-step thing. So suppose you say, let us say, what causes rain? So you will say, when the clouds come, there is rain. So you will ask your question, so what is in the cloud that causes rain? So you say it is concentrated water vapor. Where does this water vapor come from? So you say it comes by evaporation from the sources on the surface. and so on. So why does that water vapor condense? Then you said that somewhere the temperature falls down. So just like you see condensation outside an air-conditioned room, etc., and so on. So it is a question of asking yourself questions and proceeding answers, but in a step-by-step way, rather than in a complete general way and one answer immediately.
Right.
That is when learning happens. See, just like suppose you want to go from place A to B. If somebody always takes you from place A to B, you will never know the way. But if you try to go it yourself, then you will find, oh, I made a mistake. I have to go back here. I have to take a left turn there. I missed the turn that I should have taken there. Only when you have traveled yourself several times do you know the way. And then you can tell the way to others.
Right.
Then you're in a position to tell the way to others. And this is where this whole idea of teaching learning as an iteration happens. Okay.
Yes, sir. So learning through experience. So thank you, Nabam Yaman, for your question. And sir, she's also saying thank you. Now, the next question has been asked by Jaya Busal. She's saying that, sir, how do we build our learning power?
Very good. So, do you go to the gym? If not, doesn't matter. So how do we build our muscular power? The reason I'm drawing the analogy is that the whole concept of learning power has been created in this way. Actually, it's very interesting. We talked about this actually in the earlier one also. So for example, learning is a complex thing. Learning is not a simple thing. First thing we should understand. Very often we think that anything which you, like was said earlier, anything that you read, you will understand and you can memorize and can learn. But that's not so. There are so many specific things. So for example, if I have a poor vocabulary, I will not be able to understand the meaning of the words that are there. And if for every word I have to go back to the dictionary and try to figure out what the thing is, it will come in the way of my progressing in my learning. So building a good vocabulary is an essential part of learning power. So now you will see that, for example, it was mentioned in the earlier introduction that today is English Language Day. Now, if you look at learning the English language systematically, there are a number of what are called vocabulary lists. Even if you prepare for some exams like TOEFL and tests and so on, there are vocabulary lists. So you learn the vocabulary for that particular thing, that becomes one thing. Then you need to have a spelling muscle. So you should be able to have the spelling of things because you need spelling both in terms of reading or understanding, also in terms of writing. If in writing you make spelling mistakes, you will end up conveying something else than what you wanted to convey. Then you will need grammatical power because you want to write those sentences grammatically correct. Suppose if you say, he did not went, then that is not a good sentence. It's not grammatically correct. So you need to do that. So this is why we talk about learning power. It is a set of muscles, if you will. Vocabulary muscles, spelling muscles, pronunciation muscles, grammar muscles, punctuation muscles, or whatever. So each of these abilities, the metaphor is that of a muscle. If your muscle is strong, you will identify a spelling mistake or you will not make a spelling mistake. If your punctuation muscle is strong, you will be good at punctuation. You will know where to put the comma, where to put the full stop, where to put various things. You will not talk in a non-stop sentence without any punctuation and pauses and so on and so forth. Merely putting a comma can make the entire difference in meaning of a sentence. I'm not getting into that right now, but you understand that. Same thing, your mathematical muscles must be strong. If somebody is using a mathematical expression there and you cannot interpret it or understand it or extend it, you will not be able to understand that. If there is a chemistry equation there, your muscles for chemical equations must be there. You must know chemical formula. CH3 is methane, C6H6 is benzene, etc., etc. NaCl is sodium chloride. So you need those chemicals. That is why what the concept of learning power is saying, don't learn just the subject itself, learn various aspects about it so that you become part of something that you can use somewhat like your muscles. So if your physical muscles are weak, and I am saying this with some knowledge because as an old man, we see that our muscles become weaker. Therefore, walking for us becomes a bit challenging. standing can become a bit challenging. We need to sit down in a comfortable position and cannot stand for a long time. Similarly, a person cannot read for a long time if his reading muscles are not very strong. If his reading muscles are good and strong, he can read a passage for 30 minutes, 25 minutes. If his reading muscles are weak, he can only read for 2 minutes, and so on. So you get some idea?
Yes, Jaya, I hope that you have got your answer. You can write and you can share your views onto that. So, sir is basically talking about learning muscle powers, right, sir?
Yes.
Gee. So the next question, thank you, Jaya, for asking this. She's saying that she has got her answer, sir. Thank you, Jaya. The next question has been asked by Ms. Krishna. And Krishna is asking that, sir, you can share more on how to cultivate intrinsic motivation.
Yeah, so see, intrinsic motivation happens by continuously doing that and removing the external rewards which drive you. So what happens is, just like exercise is a good metaphor. So if you start walking, initially you have to have some external motivation for it. Either the doctor has told you, or your friends are going on a walk, or something else, and so on. After a while, it becomes a part of habit. And then you yourself are looking at, okay, so I did 2000 steps today. Tomorrow I will do 2500 steps. Then I will do 3000 steps. This itself becomes an intrinsic motivation. So similarly, if you will say that I heard a talk for 5 minutes, and I said, this time I will hear a TED talk for 20 minutes. So that becomes intrinsic motivation, that you are happy that you have developed the capability of being able to watch a TED talk with active involvement for 20 minutes compared to the TikTok videos which you used to see, which are only for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So this is how intrinsic motivation is developed, where that activity itself you begin to like.
But many, sir, to add into this question, many times it happens that we want to do it, we are willing to do it, but our circumstances, the surroundings doesn't match with that.
Yeah, so that is where the question of motivation comes up. So motivation is that when you are doing what your surroundings are doing, it is easy. In fact, even I will again go back to exercise. So if you can do an exercise easily, then nothing is happening. If you talk to your fitness trainer, he will tell you only when your muscles burn, you have some feeling, then exercise is happening. If you can do 20 push-ups easily, then nothing is happening. That is your normal self. When you go from 20 push-ups to 30 push-ups, then something is happening and you will feel that extra effort being done. And same thing with learning. When you do that extra effort, and then only learning will happen. Otherwise, it is entertainment. See, if I watch a movie for 3 hours, it is mostly entertainment. But when I watch a TED talk or something like this, or even this engagement that we are doing, this is now learning, because you're exercising your muscles to think, what is the question, what is the answer, has this answer answered my question or not, has this answer drifted away, or has this answer given rise to a new question, and so on. So that is when you're exercising your questioning muscles, your understanding muscles, and so on.
Right. Thank you, sir. So thank you, Krishna, for your question. And the next question is by Ms. Poonam. She's saying, sir, can you please elaborate more on knowledge evolution from power to capital?
Okay, very good. So the point was that there was a time when knowledge was not of great significance. And people like Francis Bacon said that knowledge is power. In fact, it says knowledge alone is power. And we used to have a joke that a student who went to university, in one lecture, he was told that knowledge is power. And in another lecture, he was told that power corrupts. And then he came and told his parents, I will not learn anything because knowledge is power and power corrupts. Therefore, knowledge corrupts. And therefore, I will not acquire any more knowledge. It is not a good thing. But the point was that knowledge, when we talk of something as capital, it means that it can unlock value. We talk about capital, even when you talk of, even in your accounts, you say capital gains. What is the capital and the capital is investment in factories, this, that. So when we say knowledge as capital, it means that we can use that knowledge in a number of ways. In fact, right now, Chitra began with saying today is World Copyright Day. Copyright Day, copyright, in fact, is one of the forms of knowledge capital. In fact, copyright is not right to copy. It is actually saying that you cannot copy, and there is a right in the person who made that knowledge work to get rewards for that knowledge work, and therefore they can lay down the conditions under which that knowledge work can be used, and that is why it becomes capital. So all intellectual property things like copyright, trademark, patents, and so on are called knowledge assets or intellectual property assets, and the whole regime is called intellectual property right. So we come into this thing that knowledge then become an asset which can keep on giving returns over time. There's a very famous thing by Benjamin Franklin that an investment in knowledge gives the best interest. In fact, Amitabh Bachchan has a video clipping which is very popular where he also says that I learned very early in life that an investment in knowledge pays off handsomely in terms of returns and so on. So that is when we start looking at it as capital.
Thank you, sir. So Poonam, thank you for this question, Bita. And the next question has been asked by Sangha Mitra. So she's writing that, sir, in the book Learning How to Learn, it's telling us to start learning by directly doing our end goals, like they said in programming. She's giving an example of tech IT field. Like in programming, it is said that you should start practicing making web apps. So it should we learn some fundamentals about it before directly going to the end goal, or does learning differ according to different subjects?
To some extent, it will differ according to different subjects. But by and large, it will begin with the end goal in mind. So basically, even if you look at how children learn to speak, they're trying to speak, but what they're speaking is not the correct speech. So then they keep on improving. So what they mean by saying, look at the end goal is that, let us say you want to learn how to speak in English. Then speaking in Hindi is of no help. Speaking in broken English is all right. So this is what they really mean, that whatever you want to do, try to do that.
Okay.
And then see what is coming in the way. But avoiding that and doing something which is easy to do will not take you on that path. So suppose I want to learn whatever, suppose I want to learn French, then learning English is of no help. Although you can say in some sense, your basic idea of learning will come in, but then it is of no use. You might as well directly learn English, French or whatever you want to do. So he's saying if you want to develop web apps, there is no point in you spending too much time trying to do other things. At one level, when we talk about learning muscles, in some sense, there is a general benefit in terms of learning, but in terms of effectiveness and achieving your goal, it can be a distraction.
Right. So we should start from the start point, not just read first over to the end goal.
Yeah. So whatever you want to do, so you must have some idea that I want to be able to do this and work towards that. So there are two kinds of things. In fact, there is one is called focused learning, and the other is serendipitous learning. Now, focused learning is what is being talked about. You must know what you want to do, etc., etc. Try to do the optimum way. Serendipitous learning is keep learning all kinds of things. You don't know what will be useful one. So that is called serendipitous learning. Both of these have a role to play. Sometimes serendipitous learning is very helpful. For example, when you see I make all kinds of comments, etc., a lot of serendipitous learning is coming into play because I learned these things at various points of time, various things. Focused learning is when I'm describing something in detail. So when I'm saying, what is ultra learning? What did Scott say about ultra learning? What are the 9 steps of ultra learning? This becomes focused learning.
Got the point, sir. So if you can just make us understand about collaborative learning.
Yeah. See, collaborative learning is a very interesting kind of a thing because we agreed that people learn differently, people have different backgrounds and so on. So when we do something collaboratively, then we get a lot from others. I remember a friend of mine, he was an IIT Kanpur physics professor. Whenever he had a problem, anybody he will meet on the corridor, he will ask that thing. Do you know how this is done? Do you know how this is? He says, I don't know who might be knowing it, because nobody declares that this is what I know. So ask and you shall find. So collaborative learning is exactly about this, that you pick up a problem, say this, and then because people have different background, different profile, different levels of knowledge, something interesting may come up. This is the whole idea of democracy also. Why do we say we don't look at one man's wisdom who knows all, but we say, let us have a poll, let us have a understanding, let us try to find out what people have to say. And in fact, there is a method of decision making called the Delphi method. So what they do in the Delphi method is that some people call it Delphi, but it is DELPHI. So they raise some issue and then ask people to comment on that in terms of like yes, no type questions or discrete things. Then they take it through the other set of people. And then some people may want to change their opinion, because I felt this opinion until I had heard other people's opinions. After hearing their opinions, I've changed my mind. And they keep on doing this till you iterate and come to something which is a consensus. And that is better than what your own opinion is. And very often people have find, if they're objective, that what they initially thought is quite different from what they finally agreed after they have seen the opinions of others.
Right. It's, sir, something which we see on social media, like on Facebook and Twitter. You put something and you get the help of all the community members.
Exactly. So that's why, in fact, the formula it is called Delphi method. Those of you who are interested can Google it and know more about it. It's a special technique. I mean, long before social media came, this was being used in groups when we have 20, 50 people who all know about things somewhat differently, and then we take a collective wisdom.
Sir, my next question is about, you have talked about mnemonics. So if you can elaborate it a bit, because this is something very interesting.
See, the point is, mnemonics is something which we use to remember something easily. So basically, for example, if you ask somebody which day of the month has how many days, which calendar month has how many days, you cannot remember January 31. So we have a mnemonics, 30 days are September, April, June, and November, all the 31, etc. So this is called mnemonics. Similarly, colors of the rainbow, you cannot visualize and repeat. So you know there's something called Vibgyor, violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. In trigonometry, you go through the various things. So there is something where sine is all plus, then there is sine plus, then cos plus, tan plus. So the mnemonic for this is add sugar to coffee. So add sugar to coffee means that in the first quadrant, all are plus, next sine is plus, and so on. And those who are from South India, there is something called Rahu Kal. So when you want to know how is Rahu Kal to be formed, there is again a mnemonic saying mother saw Papa with a turban, etc., on a Thursday, etc. So there is a mnemonic. So mnemonics make it easier for us to remember things which have a complex pattern.
Right, sir. Right, sir. And so we have also got the material and we read more about sleep learning.
Yes.
So if you can just guide us on that also.
Yes, so it is a very interesting thing.
Why is it important, sir? Exactly.
See, it is important. See, it is very, now we are beginning to learn more and more about the brain. We didn't know so much. So knowing about consciousness, as I said, neurogenesis, neuroplasticity. So when we are asleep, the brain is not asleep. I mean, that's why we have all these dreams. And in the dreams we see, in fact, I remember when I was young, we used to have a joke on this, that when you see your dream, do you see them in color or in black and white? But we see dreams in color. We also have all the taste in color. We have the feel in dreams. I remember that you're dreaming and you're feeling that this is like this is hard, this is soft, this is gooey, this is this, etc., etc. So the brain keeps on going. Now there is a concept called lucid dreaming. And what people are now talking about, and I gave some glimpses on that by conscious preparation, you can make it. Is very well known that many scientists, innovators, creative people actually go to bed with their biggest thoughts in mind. And somehow during the sleep, the solution comes to them. There are famous stories of, for example, the person, I think it was Kekule, who found the answer to the benzene ring formula in chemistry, because as he went to sleep, he was worrying about what this thing should be. And he saw some 6 snakes with each of this thing, and he woke up and came up with the benzene thing. There are so many things about the formula, equations, solutions. Many mathematicians slept with the problem. They had a dream. They woke up. They just wrote whatever they saw in the dream, and that was the solution of the problem. So the whole idea is that can we use dreams productively in terms of that? So, for example, that's why I even talked about doing this session at before you go to sleep from 8 to 9:30, so that after that you're thinking about it, and maybe you are getting more dreams in your thing. So that is the thing.
Ji, sir. Even it has said that if something is very important to you, learn it, you read it at the time before you going to sleep, or in the early morning when you just woke up from your sleep.
Right. In fact, we have a metaphor called sleep over it. The idea metaphor sleep over it is basically you keep thinking about it while you go to sleep, and your subconscious mind will continue working on it.
Right. And so Krishna has asked one question. How does learning take place through simulations?
See, simulation is something where, is like experiential learning. So we learn a lot by experience, but sometimes that experience is not possible in real life so easily. You have simulators. The most well-known simulator training used to be in pilot training. So in fact, then there were a lot of games around where you simulate an aircraft. So you sit in something which is a cockpit, you press few buttons, this, that, and then those things happen, which are the consequential things if you were in a real aircraft. Now, similarly, you can do simulation for many other things, many chemical reactions, many complex things you can simulate. In fact, even in a simple Excel sheet, in an Excel sheet, when you say you create an Excel sheet, then you change some parameter, and what you see as the result is a simulation, and it's called a what if analysis. So suppose you raise the interest rate by this much, you raise the salary by this much, that is all a simulation. And this is why it is very interesting and useful, because you can then do that without doing the actual thing.
Ji. Thank you, sir. And one more question has come from Poonam. She's saying, so if you can please explain sleep spindle.
See, well, it is explained over there in the slide itself. The definition is given. Basically, it's a certain period of sleeping and a pattern of sleeping. I have given some slides on pattern of sleeping, REM, NREM, REM1, REM2, etc., etc. So it's a certain stage of sleep, and it is somewhat related to the ability to learn during that period.
Right. So as time is passing on and you have to attend your program also, sir, with your permission, we would like to end our webinar for today.
Okay. And or if there is one or two questions, I can still take it. It is
right.
We should leave the curiosity fulfilled. But if there are no more questions, then I am perfectly happy to go to my other meeting and do that.
We do have questions, but seeing the time frame, okay, I'll carry one or two more questions out of that.
Yeah.
Sure. So it has been asked that when we talk about self-learning, and
yes,
particularly the creativity of creativity plays a role in self-learning.
Yeah, more than creativity, it is discipline which plays a role in self-learning. You see, the biggest thing about self-learning, biggest challenge is the distractions. You remember early on we talked about procrastination, something else coming up, etc. So if there is no external driver, it is very difficult to maintain your focus and persistence and ability. And that is why people try to go to a school, college, university have a teacher, have a scheduled timetable. So by having a scheduled timetable, it means that for this 1 hour, you will study this. And therefore, for self-learning, that's why I emphasize so much about the attributes and talked about techniques of time management, including Pomodoro technique. You decide that this half an hour, I will do this and only this. Otherwise, you are likely to get distracted because something more interesting may come up, something else may happen, and so on.
Right, sir. Right. That is very important that you just told. So, though I'm just going to ask a question from you, because it has been asked, so I'm exactly asking in the same way that the person has asked. He's saying that I am unemployed, and is this kind of online programs will going to give me employment?
Yeah, see, you must understand that very often, in fact, I remember long years ago, I was in Kashmir and a student asked me that should I do an IT degree and then a specialization in management, or should I do a management degree and then an IT? What will be better? And I told him, and I'm telling here again, degrees do not get jobs. It is individuals who get jobs. So what you have to do, no matter what you learn, is to convince the other person that you will be an asset to them, a useful person to them. So online, offline, experiential. In fact, you will be surprised. Most people who were in the IT field did not learn formally. They all learned from their brothers, relatives, whatever was there. The point is, if you can do something which is of value to others, you will be employed and well employed. By just having a piece of paper which says you have a certificate and something, if the person doesn't need that, how does it matter? So this is what is very important. And this idea that thinking that this line has scope is not a good thing. You have to see what can I do which is helpful to people. And for this, what more I need to learn. So very good. I'm helpful to people. I know this and people like me for this. What more should I know so that people like me more and will be able to reward me more, value me more. So it is increasing your value, which is most important.
Gee. And with this, Mark Hitini, you have raised your hand. So if you have any question to ask, you can unmute your mic and you can ask, because your hands are raised here. Till the time she is asking, sir,
Yes.
if we can just ask you about, there's something called as
What happened?
so is my voice coming?
Now it has come. For a while it was gone.
Okay. Right. I'm sorry for that. Okay.
No,
So there's something called a sixth sense.
Yeah.
And when we are learning, so why I'm asking you is that sixth sense to help in choosing what we have to learn and how we have to learn when we are choosing some online program.
Yeah. See, the sixth sense is a phrase that we use for something which cannot be explained otherwise. So we all believe we have these famous five senses, and therefore all our inputs are based on these senses. So when something is based on these senses, we can say that we are able to explain it came because of those senses. The sixth sense or extrasensory perception or intuition or whatever you call it is something which is a more complex reasoning, which you cannot explain step by step, but you say, this is what I feel, this is my gut feeling, this is my intuition, and very often it is right. In fact, Einstein was a great believer in that you have that feeling, you don't know why that is coming, you cannot give the step by step as you give in geometry and then say QED, but this is what you feel. And it has seen to work out in a lot of places because, in a sense, a complex problem has been correctly solved, although you do not know what are the steps of the solution or what are the logical steps of the solution.
Right. So in self-learning, who will give us the feedback?
You will give yourself a feedback.
But then,
Yeah. No, you have to become very objective. See, in fact, there is in Hindu tradition and Hindu philosophy something called Sakshi Bhav. So you look at yourself as an external observer. So when you do something, you say, did I do this right?
ji,
Is this the right way of doing it? Even you are doing it, you can reflect on it objectively. One is subjectively. I am this thing, I'm bound my senses, I like this is a very good, nice tasting jalebi, so I will eat it. But as a Sakshi Bhav, you will say, no, but I am a diabetic, I should not be eating jalebi. So although my tongue is encouraging me to eat jalebi, my mind is saying that no, you should not be eating jalebi. Or for that matter, samosa if you have high blood pressure and cholesterol and so on and so forth. So this is what happens in self-judgment. We do this all the time.
ji. So please allow me to ask one more question, and then I'll wind up this webinar. For today.
Okay, very
Like,
good, very good.
when we say that you have to be, you have to give your feedback yourself, then in case of mature learner, that is possible. But when we talk about the youth, the immature,
Yeah. See,
how
the
they-
point is very, even if you look at, forget this, if you look at even children, while at play, the feedback on their work is very honest.
ji,
They will tell you, ye galat ho gaya, ye ho gaya, ye ho gaya, ye ho gaya. So we are all capable of. It is only when we are driven by something external, fear of punishment or something else that we. The children naturally speak the truth. They cannot speak lies.
ji,
We are trained to speak lies later on because of the external system. So
ji,
it is quite possible for you, and most of us know that this thing I did not do well. And in fact, very often, even at school level, I remember that the teacher used to give us the answer books to grade. Of course, they would interchange and say, you grade this student's answer book, that student grade this thing. But by and large, students were quite fair in the grades that they gave to others. So it is quite possible for us to do that. And we realize, all people who learn anything continuously realize, you take any singer, he will tell you, I made a bad thing, this was out of tune, this was not correct, this was not timing, etc. You take a dancer, she will say, I did this wrong step, etc., etc., and so on. It's only when we have fear of external punishment or external effects that we try to lie to ourselves. And even though we haven't done a good job, we'll say, no, we've done a great job. But otherwise, children by and large are very honest and matter of fact speaking. In fact, there's so many stories, it can be very embarrassing how matter of fact and truthful children are.
right, sir. So learner is a learner.
Yeah.
Ji, ji, ji. Sir, to summarize this whole session, if you want to give your end notes for today's webinar.
Yeah. So the point I said was that we need techniques for learning.
Ji.
And learn. See, like everything else, there are certain things you can do, but you don't know how you did it. That is okay. But otherwise, there are techniques. In this week, we talked about step-by-step thing, and something which people haven't paid that much attention to is ultra learning. So Scott Young has learned so many things. He said
Ji.
you have to become intensively obsessed with learning. And he gave us 9 steps of what is required in ultra learning. So the other learning is random learning, just like that learning. But ultra learning, he says that you are focused, you want to learn this and you want to seriously learn it. And that is what it is there. And then we talked about things, including learning in your sleep and so on. The whole variety of things that we talked about. Next week, we'll talk about what kind of a toolkit can be there, and largely talk about artificial intelligence and other technologies to become a better self-learner.
Right. So this is all about techniques to become a self-learner, and really self-learning is the best learning. What we have got all through these flip learning and different aspects that we have shared throughout the week in this third week of this one-month program. And I'm really thankful to Sir once again for giving his time to us to answer
Thank
our
you.
question. Thank you so much.
See, because I had this commitment to you for 4 Saturdays. And this commitment came, and I'm right now, as I said, in Dehradun, and we have a whole lot of people, and I spilled up because they are having dinner, and I will join them for dinner now onwards, and have another hour and a half of discussion with them, so on. So thank you all. I hope you found this useful.
Ji, definitely, sir. We are fortunate.
Thank you.
Ji.